It was a calm Sunday morning when I received the call. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and I quickly reached for it, expecting a routine update on local crime or traffic reports. Instead, it was my friend John, a farmer who owns several acres just outside the town. His voice crackled through the line, filled with anxiety and frustration. "You need to get over here now," he said. "Karen, that woman from the HOA, she's done something crazy." I immediately grabbed my keys and rushed out the door, my instincts already kicking into high gear. The last thing I expected was for this HOA Karen to be involved in anything remotely dangerous. But my gut told me it was bad. Very bad. As I pulled up to John's property, I saw the smoke rising into the sky in the distance, thick and dark. Panic surged through me as I slammed the brakes and parked hastily on the side of the road. I jumped out of the car and ran toward the barn, where John was already standing, staring helplessly at his farm. "John, what happened?" I asked, looking around. His crops were scorched and the smell of burning hay filled the air. It looked like a small fire had started near the barn, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. "That woman, Karen, she was here earlier, talking about how I wasn't following the HOA-approved rules for my property," John explained, his voice shaking with anger. "I told her to get lost, but she did this. She set fire to the property." I turned to see a figure walking casually away from the barn, a woman in her mid-50s, wearing the unmistakable HOA Karen attire, a floral blouse, khaki pants, and a visor. It was Karen, the notorious HOA board member, who had made it her life's mission to interfere in everyone's property affairs. She glanced at us and then made the mistake of looking at me with a smug expression. "Oh, it's you," she said, barely hiding her disdain. "I figured you'd be here to complain about my little fire, but I did what needed to be done. Your property was a mess, and it was causing the neighborhood to look bad. Something needed to be done about it." I couldn't believe my ears. "You set my friend's property on fire?" I demanded. "You destroyed his farm? For what? Because of some trivial HOA rules you thought mattered more than his livelihood?" She shrugged, clearly unrepentant. "I'm doing what's best for the community. People like John think they can get away with anything, but not when I'm in charge. If you don't follow the rules, there are consequences." John stepped forward, his fists clenched in rage. "This is my livelihood, Karen. You've ruined everything." "I don't have time for your whining," Karen shot back. "I'm just making sure things are up to code, even if it means making a statement." At that moment, I couldn't hold back any longer. I stepped forward, pulling out my badge and flashing it in front of her face. "You're under arrest for arson and property damage." Karen's eyes widened in shock. "What? You can't arrest me. I'm just doing my job." "You're not just doing your job," I said coldly. "You're committing a crime. You have no right to destroy someone's property like this, and you'll answer for it." Karen tried to step back, clearly panicking, but I motioned to my officers, who had arrived shortly after I did. They moved in quickly, cuffing her as she sputtered out excuses. "You'll regret this," she muttered under her breath as they led her away. John stood silently, watching as Karen was escorted to the police car. For a brief moment, I could see the gratitude in his eyes. He had worked tirelessly to keep his farm running, and now it seemed like everything had been taken from him by someone with a misplaced sense of entitlement. Once Karen was in the back of the patrol car, I turned to John. "Don't worry, we'll make sure she's held accountable. You won't lose everything." I made a call to the district attorney to ensure the charges were properly filed, and I also put in a request for a full investigation into the fire. Karen would not get away with this. Not on my watch. As we stood there watching the smoke continue to rise from the burned fields, I couldn't help but think about how far some people would go to enforce their idea of rules. In Karen's twisted mind, her HOA-approved laws justified destroying a man's life's work. But that was the difference between her and me. I understood the law, and I wasn't going to let her get away with this. As the day wore on, I coordinated the efforts to help John get his farm back on track. We called in local fire department experts to assess the damage, and I personally contacted a few local farmers who offered to help. Slowly but surely, John's farm would recover, even if it took time. I also made sure to send a strong message to the HOA through official channels that their behavior was unacceptable and would be dealt with swiftly. The days of Karen's unchecked power were over, and as the police chief, I would make sure of it.